Yo, peace to the planet. This is Adisa the Bishop. I'm chilling. I have a very special friend on here. You've seen him before. Matt Robinson, also known as Robbo, right? On IG at Integrity Through Action. He teaches a lot of stuff. I'll let him introduce himself in a moment. But what I want to talk about is, we're getting ready to start the new year. And it's always a situation where people have a lot of times, especially with guys, but it's everybody. We start with the new year, new me, whatever, whatever. And then 3 weeks later, it's over, right? You've quit, you've given up, and you don't think you can do whatever you said you were going to do. Well, this is about trying to make sure that doesn't happen. This is about trying to make sure that what you're doing are measurable steps, that you understand realistically where you're at, and maybe what should your priorities be. So, uh, Robbo, man, thank you for coming back to Bishop Chronicles, man. Appreciate you making time. First, explain what integrity through action does, and then let's kind of talk about how we can stick with our goals going into 26.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me. Yeah, integrity through action is essentially it's lifestyle change for men. So it's just helping guys with everything relating to health. So diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, goal setting, and all that good stuff. So yeah, just trying to get people healthier in their sort of getting into middle age and on onwards.
Yeah, man, and this is such a big deal, right? Because it's funny, like, this is obviously a podcast kind of built around stoicism and things like that. But years before I even knew what stoicism was, I mean, like half a life ago, I remember the new year was coming, and let's say it was like October of that year. I literally think this was like 1993 or something like that, 94. And I was like, oh, what are my New Year's resolutions going to be? And then let's say I had a New Year's resolution at the time, I'm going to be stronger. And I was like, I'll wait until the new year. That'll be my New Year's resolution. And then right after that, my brain was like, when you make a goal like a New Year's resolution, you assume that you're going to live into the next year. Like, what if you're gonna get ran over by a truck? What if, you know what I mean? Fate just comes and it doesn't happen. If you're gonna start doing something, just start, right? And so for many, many years, I never had New Year's resolutions. I was like, if I see something I need to fix, I'm just gonna try to lean into it. This is one of the first years where I've kind of really thought about what I want to do as I go into the new year. I think a couple episodes back, I talked about people doing a joy audit where they think about when they're happy, what are they wearing? Who's around them, right? Like what music are they listening to, or are they in nature, right? Things like that. So they can kind of start trying to like gather the things that bring them peace and bring them grounding. Um, as I look now, I still see that a lot of people kind of overdo their initial goals, and like that can be kind of a problem. Like, what advice do you have for these guys who are getting ready to, try to be better humans for the next year?
Yeah. That's a good point you've made. I think it's one of the mistakes I've made in the past is just becoming obsessed and just all encompassing like one thing that I'm just obsessed about. But then everything else kind of suffers. So your relationships, everything just kind of you think you're doing this thing to make yourself better, but you're excluding a lot of other stuff that actually starts to other things start to deteriorate. So for me, it's always been like physical stuff's always been like my thing, easy for me. So I've always trained, I've always done sport, and that's always easy. So I've always tended to, in the past, set goals or kind of have things like physical achievements that I want to try and attain. Whereas there's the stuff that's harder, like the relationships and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really setting goals for that and kind of letting that, um, ignoring that a little bit. So I think. I think that's a really good that audit is good in general. Just like where am I at in life at the moment, and what is it that needs kind of looking at all different aspects of your life. So your relationships, work, um, what you're doing for like hobbies and leisure and all that kind of stuff, and your obviously physical health. and looking at them all individually and deciding kind of what where the lowest hanging fruit is for making you all round sort of healthier and happier. Because that kind of the happiness doesn't get talked about a lot, does it? It's like I'm gonna do this. I don't know. I'm gonna lose X amount of kilos, or I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this. But it's like I think ultimately, like one of the big things with again, it is behavior change, so lifestyle stuff. If you look at all the kind of key voices in that sort of lifestyle behavior change
And
kind of thing,
mhm.
like you sort of James Clear, Jordan Peterson, uh,
Right.
Stephen Peters, Chimp Paradox. If you distill down a lot of what a lot of them talk about is actually sitting back and reflecting on who it is you want to be, which sounds a
Where
bit,
are you?
yeah,
Hmm.
and who do you want to be? So Jordan Peterson talks about aiming up and like having that kind of um, having something in mind is where you're trying to get to in
Yeah.
life, not just with one little aspect. James Clear talks about looking into who, like creating an avatar of the person you want to become, and then acting like that avatar, and then
That's
you,
a huge thing.
yeah, yeah,
That's a
massive.
huge thing,
So
right?
I think before you do any kind of goal setting or look focusing on one thing. It's like having a proper sit down and look at who is it I want to be ultimately, because a lot of the classic January New Year New Me things, they're all around. A lot of them around you know how you look. You
Yeah.
know, it's all weight generally losing weight
It usually, yeah,
or
yeah. I want to
looking
lose 15. I want to lose
yeah
20, right? You know what I
or
mean?
looking better. But a
Mm,
lot of that is based on sort of extrinsic motivation or pressure, social
true.
pressure, and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. Whereas again, these all these guys talk about intrinsic motivation to change. If that's there, it's a much stronger and more powerful pull towards making the right decisions than feeling like you don't look how you want to look and
How
just
you want to look, yeah.
changing for other people.
It's funny that you say that. There was a book I read years ago when I was working in Silicon Valley, and the book was called Drive. I think I may have the author wrong. I hope I'm not. I think the guy's name was Daniel Pink, but the book was about drive and it was about like, what makes people want to do things. And actually the conclusion of that book, and I'll bet you that Peterson or one of these guys even read that book where it really kind of breaks down that like external goals and ideals, they never really drive people. That, the best things that make people follow through are things that that move you from within, and I think for so many men we find ourselves so out of tune with our emotional self, right? And with our psychological self, because we're still trying to live up to whatever we thought our dad wanted us to do, or our parents, or your wife or your ex-wife or whatever, right? That you don't even know where you are. So I think that is really crucial. One of the things I posted yesterday on on my Instagram, which is like, men, exclamation point, like try therapy in 2026. Seriously. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it's so hard. I think one of the reasons why it's so hard for men to be vulnerable and emotional is because they've probably never done it. You know what I mean? And they're usually, what I've been trying to recognize in myself is how much of my self-talk is really me. Right? How much of what I'm calling self-talk is a parent, is a partner, is, one instance that happened to you in the middle of a football game, and you've taken that on as an identity, right? You didn't leave that moment on the field, or you didn't allow yourself to kind of evolve out of it. Obviously, I do this resilient men's group thing, and even though I love doing that, I always tell the guys it's not a replacement for therapy. It's a great tool, right? But
yeah,
it's meant to be a supplement for therapy, uh, and something that you work with it. It's not meant to be something you do against it, and it's not something you're supposed to do like in place of the work, right?
yeah,
Like a lot of you guys out there, like really trust me, man. Therapy is dope. I'm just getting back to therapy after not having done it for a couple years, but that was more money based. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That wasn't like I didn't have money for therapy, and now that I do, I'm back and I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it. When it comes to the physical goals, though, because they still are, right? Like most of the guys my age, I'm 55, I'll be 56 in February if I can live that long. Um, Most guys I know are out of shape and they don't feel good about themselves. You know what
Mm.
I mean? And you're absolutely right. Like, if you do lose the 20 pounds, like I've been lucky, I lost about 15. I'm not quite at 15. I think I'm like at like 12 or something, trying to, yeah, inch it through. And being here in England hasn't helped because I've totally botched all my sugar shutdown goals. So, the gummy bears and hot chocolate are back. It's cold up here, man. Um, and but the one thing I will say is different is I am not nearly as controlled by sugar as I used to be. That's one thing I got through this year is I did conquer my sugar addiction. So, like, yeah, it's cold, I'm drinking some hot chocolate, whatever. But when I get back to Cali, I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? I'm not,
Yeah,
that was really one good thing. A lot of times there's a book I didn't read. I think it's called Atomic Habits. It's about like
yeah,
little habits and stuff like that. Um, did you read that book? Do you know that
yeah.
one?
So that's one of the. I think he's done himself a disservice. You know, the title of it
Hmm.
actually it doesn't sound. It's a book on psychology basically, and it's really well. It's really easy to understand and kind of get the grasp and all that kind of stuff. And it's a really deep look into like behavior change, but like the
Mm.
psychology of it. So
Mm.
you think like from the title, you think, oh, it's about just building habits, like sort of a little bit at a time or whatever. But it's actually, um, I think he's actually dropped the ball on the title because it's a really really good book on behavior change and it's stuff that people can implement like really easily. I
I've only
def
heard great things
Yeah,
about it.
it's a really good book. I go back to it a lot, and with clients as well, sort of using the principles in it. Because his whole thing is like rather than having a goal, one of the concepts is if you've got a goal, so like I want to lose 15 pounds. Um, there's this element of if you have systems in place which will get you to that goal at some point. So, for example, um, if you just said, right, I'm gonna choose a diet. I don't want to use the word
Hmm.
diet, but it's the best
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna eat clean, let's say, consistently, and I'm gonna go to the gym 3 times a week. That's your system.
Hmm.
If you focus on following that system and just dialing it in and being consistent with it, you can almost forget about the goal because it's going to happen. Whereas if you're just obsessed on the goal, it's like, everyone who starts a 100-meter sprint race,
Hmm.
they all want to win.
Hmm.
Their goal is to win. But the ones who had the best systems in place for training leading up to it, the person with the best system will win. But they all had the same goal, and it's that kind of idea.
That's really interesting, man. Like one of the things that I started getting into really, well, I mean, I'm saying really young. I was an adult in my 30s or whatever, but because I'm almost 60, it feels young. The thing that I got really good with, and I think this might, I don't know, dude, like you're actually a much more authentic fitness person or whatever, but one of the things that worked for me was to not use the scale and just do the work. Right.
Hmm.
Like I remember at one point, like I would get on the scale like every 2 or 3. Oh, I'm up a pound. Oh, I'm down a pound. Oh, I'm da-da-da. Oh, I'm da-da-da. And at some point I was like, dude, somehow you've become a fucking slave to this scale. You need to let go of that shit and just do your thing. You know what I mean? And so like, um, I don't know, dude. I was around like 213 or something like that. And I started just doing my thing on this recent thing where it was like intermittent fasting, eating clean, lots of water. And the real thing was like no sugar. Now, I don't drink alcohol. And I had to reframe sugar in my mind. One of the ways that I did this was to reframe it. And I was like, sugar is alcohol. That's how you get, like, I would never accept it. If someone was like, hey, would you like half a cup of wine? I would never accept half a cup of wine because I don't drink alcohol. And I was like, unless you start framing sugar as alcohol, you're going to believe that, it's okay. It's just a gummy bear. It's just a muffin. It's just, a few candy bars. And by taking that on, man, and really just sticking to the diet, the weight went away. And then one day I saw a scale, I mean, literally 2.5 months in, and I had lost a lot. And I was like, all right. And I was like, okay, now leave it alone again and go back. And then I got down to 200, man. You know what I mean? And I was really,
Yeah, yeah,
now I still got a few more to go, but I mean, like that I found that to be really helpful for me, kind of the reframing of the things that I know I have an addiction towards.
yeah, totally. Um, yeah, I think like the scales thing is like real a real issue. And obviously you need some measure of it's like a catch-22. You want something to kind of see that you are making progress, but at the same time, like you've said, it becomes obsessive. And scales aren't the best way to kind of, your weight on the scales is not always reflective of weight how you're getting on. You can see in the mirror if you're carrying
Exactly.
extra
And that's
weight
kind of
ultimately.
my
Um,
thing was kind of a mix of the scale and how am I actually feeling?
yeah,
Like working on like full body, whole body presence.
yeah,
And all right, like one of the ways I knew I was losing weight was because I had to I had to switch down a level in my belt. You know what I mean? I was like,
yeah,
all right, that's progress. Now I don't know how much I weigh right now, but just the fact that I kind of have to move this is a good sign. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? And that
Well,
wasn't something I was expecting.
yeah, like how your clothes fit, how you look in the mirror is the
Mhm,
two
mhm.
best measures really. Because obviously, if you're training a lot as well, there's depending on what you're eating, will like your weight will fluctuate a lot regardless
Totally,
of like how
totally.
much fat you're carrying around with you. So, I've never been a big fan of like weighing yourself every day. It's definitely a helpful tool. Um, and if you're taking somebody who's completely, doesn't do any exercise and has got a lot of weight to lose, then it's helpful there because more than likely it's fat that's coming off initially.
Totally.
But
Yeah,
once
yeah,
you get
yeah.
closer to sort of, you sort of happy lean mass, then you just the weight just becomes a bit of a red herring sometimes.
No, no, totally, man. Now, here's one thing I wanted to ask you was, what do you think about, because, again, American guy, teenager in the 80s, and, a lot of what we called fitness in the 80s was really just what was your bench press max, right? I can bench 200
Yeah,
pounds, 235, 250. This guy can bench 400, whatever. But because I knew some friends in the bodybuilding space, they were like, yeah, but look at the guy's legs, right? Like they don't have any quads. Their calves look really thin, but they've got this big chest and the big shoulders, maybe, right? Maybe some biceps, but that's really it. And we were thinking that that is fitness, right? And, now that I'm 55, I think that a lot of what I seek in fitness really isn't like I want to be strong. I think, having strength matters, especially as you get older, because, when you're talking about injuries or you're talking about keeping your balance, things that you don't think about when you're younger, like you got to have certain structural but really like flexibility. Um, so much of what I think about now with my fitness deals with a balance of strength, flexibility, and cardio. You know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
that, and I'm asking you this, or is it a bad way to look at it? Like, should people be more focused on cardio than strength in the beginning? Is it more strength and cardio? Is flexible? Is it the balance, or should you choose one and say, all right, I'm going to start with, let's just say yoga. And if I can do yoga for a month, then I'll start jogging. If I can jog, then I'll start doing push-ups. Or should you just do like 10 push-ups, stretch for 5 minutes, and then jog for 5 minutes? Like, what do you think about stuff like that?
Um, I think there's a few different things to think about. One is Like ultimately, because this is why I sort of changed my when I closed the gym and like towards the back end of the gym closing, it was very much shifting the focus onto health.
Hmm.
And the reason for that and kind of the reason I've changed how I train a lot is because if you put health at the top of your list of priorities, like that's your ultimate your main aim or goal is to be as healthy as possible.
Hmm.
And if you start to look at the metrics around that, obviously people can use different things to debate what healthy is. But if you look at
Hmm.
mortality rates and things like that, you in getting into your old age, being strong is really important. Both,
Totally.
muscular strength, but also bone, your bone density and
Yeah.
how strong your skeleton is. So strength's really important for health and living a healthy older age. Cardio is really important. So your cardiovascular health is really important towards how healthy you're going to be in your older
Hmm.
age.
Hmm.
Um, and mobility as well is really important. So I would say in terms of flexibility, it's not a priority in terms of being able to do the splits. But obviously, if you can't touch your toes, or do basic stuff, then that will impact you later on. But the two big ones, obviously, strength training and cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah.
And to me, I'd like all guys should be doing strength training and some kind of cardio.
Hmm.
Um, and what that looks like ultimately is what you enjoy doing because not everyone likes going to the gym. However, the 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 biggest bang for your buck is going to the gym and doing some strength training, doing a well-rounded strength program that's just aimed at whole body strength. So a lot of compound lifts, which is like your deadlift, squat, bench press,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff, and then some other bits and pieces just to tick all the boxes. So strength training, I would advise everyone to be doing, and
Smart.
it don't have to be super complicated. Um, you just need a gym membership and get yourself a program, and just follow it consistently. If you don't like going to the gym, then find something else to do. So like I'm a climber, so I do that's
Hmm.
quite, a lot of upper body strength in climbing. Jits, if you like there's really a strength element there.
Yeah.
Um, so you've got to find something you enjoy doing, because otherwise you won't continue doing it, and it's not sustainable.
You
Um,
know, it's funny you mentioned that thing about jujitsu. I was thinking about my health in relationship to jujitsu, and people always kind of talk about the benefits of jujitsu, and there are many, no question. Like if you stick with it, whatever, right? But it's not an end all be all. And some people don't do it at all, don't like it, and that's totally fair. But one thing that I did realize later in life, after doing jujitsu for a while, was that in order to do jujitsu consistently at a place where you can learn, not be getting injured, etc., you actually have to have a certain threshold of fitness just to do it,
mhm.
right? So you can completely suck at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and be really fit and actually happy. And because just by making sure that you're healthy enough to do it, you are healthier than most of the people you know,
Hmm.
right? Just doing the warm-ups, man. Jiu-Jitsu warm-ups are not extreme, in my opinion, but most people just can't do them. You know what I mean? Most men
Yeah, yeah.
can't do them. Most women can't do them. So if you're a man, woman, or child doing a jujitsu warm up, and you're the worst person in the class, right? Because I was the worst person in the class for years, right? For years. But just being able to do it and get killed over and over again gave me a level of fitness that a lot of others don't have. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So I think that's really beneficial. Now, when it comes to diet, like it's such a weird thing. Like, I came up in the 80s again where there was always a new diet, this diet, that diet, oh, you're only eating this, or you're eating never that, or whatever. Um, and then obviously we've kind of evolved and the data shows that, general lifestyle and you know what I mean, consistent eating in certain consistent ways will do this for you, even will do that for you. Um, if people are starting from zero and they don't even know anything, right, about which way they should or shouldn't eat, do you have any suggestions? And then do you have any suggestions about the value or the dangers of fasting? And if you're starting from zero and you do want to fast, do you have any recommendations in that space?
Okay, mate. In terms of diet, I think if somebody's starting from scratch, the goal, I would say the easiest entry point for eating well is going to be prioritize protein.
Hmm.
So every meal should have protein in it, not for bodybuilding and for bulking up, just purely like our body requires protein for everything it does. So and this is the only number that I ever kind of work with clients. I don't do calorie counting or macros or any of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
But the
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing I do sort of try and insist on is at least 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of like lean body weight
Okay.
a day. So making sure you're getting that much protein and then plus veggies basically.
Yeah,
And that's and minimal like zero snacks ideally. So you should be eating enough that you're full and satiated between meals. Um, and obviously that cuts out all the processed junk straight away. So if you can focus on, and if that's too much to start with, then just start with one meal. So like breakfast is the easiest one. Eggs for breakfast is a perfect start to the day.
totally.
Protein, healthy
Totally.
fats, no, nothing, omelets, whatever you want to do with eggs for breakfast, and then maybe like do a week or so of that, and then change your lunches up, and then
Yep.
so just trying to kind of ultimately
That's
get to
actually
that
really
point.
smart, right? That's really
Yeah.
smart. One thing that I started falling into recently, and I did this for two reasons. It's going to sound corny, and for some of you, it's going to sound gross, but I found it to be really helpful. Was I started eating sardines a lot, and I started eating just different kinds of canned fish. So it might be tuna for lunch, it might be sardines, it might be mackerel, right? Um, and a lot of that stuff is super cheap, first of all. And
Hmm.
actually, to me, it doesn't taste bad. Like I actually like sardines, whatever. All you got to do is make sure you eat that outside. Like don't eat it in the lunchroom at work. But if by keeping a few cans of sardines or tuna or whatever in the car and then just like eating like fruit or vegetables with it, bro, I
Hmm.
did good with that, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fruit actually helped me satiate my sweet tooth, right? It kind of reattuned my sweet tooth. So before I would eat, let's say a burger and then have a candy bar or, whatever. And now I'm having like sardines, spring water, and then two apples or two pears or whatever. Man, that stuff really helped. And
Mm.
when I get back to America, like that's one of the main things I'm
Yeah, yeah.
doing to keep the weight down
Yeah, that's cool,
and
mate.
get rid of the sugar craving.
Yeah.
Um,
On fasting, this is a kind
mhm,
of a um yeah, it's an interesting one. So a bit like so the easiest so fasting is definitely there's nothing it's healthy to do. Um there's definitely benefits to it, which I won't like bore everyone with, but it's definitely different between men and women. So
mhm.
women need to be a bit more careful with it than men, um, down to the like hormonal side of things. And fasting is a stress on your body.
True.
So I'm women aside, because I work with men. So I'll
Right.
the complicated stuff is fasting for women is a bit more complicated. Time of the month, like it
Mm,
impacts it, what and all kinds of other stuff. So I'm not going to go into that. But for guys, the biggest mistake people tend to make with fasting is you need to be fat adapted before you start fasting to do it properly.
what
So
does that mean to be fat adapted? What does that mean?
so
I've never
so
heard that
so
word.
yeah. So basically, if you're eating like a standard Western diet, which has got a lot of um, a lot of processed grains, a lot of sugar, a lot of high sugary, starchy carbs,
Mm,
then your metabolism, your body's geared up for running on carbohydrate basically.
hmm.
If you cut out all the sugar, which I think you've done in the past, um, if you cut all the sugar out overnight and then you'll it doesn't just you don't just suddenly switch to using fat for fuel as a sort
True.
of primary fuel source. It takes a couple of weeks for your enzymes in your liver and your metabolism to switch
And
over
even your
to,
brain.
yeah, 100%. So you need a couple of weeks lead into it basically to get fat adapted. So in order to get fat adapted, you need to cut out all the carbohydrate. So breads, pasta, all your kind of
Hmm.
sugary or carby grains and all that kind of stuff. 2 weeks of that, and you should notice a massive difference. Like cognition, as like you've just said, like you'll feel a lot more. You've got much better kind of cognition. You'll feel
Hmm.
more awake throughout the day. You'll just feel better generally. And that's a sign. You'll notice a change. And it does happen overnight, but it takes a couple of weeks before it happens. But you will notice a very obvious change in how you feel. At that point, you'd say you're fat adapted. Another way of knowing that if you're fat adapted is if you get up in the morning, if you're after a couple of hours, if you're hungry and then you start to get really hungry and you kind of
Hmm.
and you feel, I don't know if you know like how you feel when your blood sugars
Oh
start
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
dip.
yeah, yeah. Definitely.
So if
Definitely.
that happens and you just feel rotten basically until you eat, then you're not fat adapted. If you wake up in the morning, you'll naturally get hungry after an hour or two, but then that hunger will kind of pass fairly quickly without the hungriness. That's another signal that you're fat adapted because your body basically just taps straight to your fat storage for fuel.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Like I know guys who would make, let's say, like a cup of coffee, right? Black
Mm-hmm.
coffee, and they just put like a pat of butter in it. Or some people would put like a teaspoon of coconut oil
Mm-hmm.
in, right? And I remember people doing a lot of stuff like that. Back to the sardines, people, one of my friends said, well, if you're going to be eating a lot of protein, you need fats in. So make sure you use the sardines that are in oil and not water, right? To make sure that, you've got some of those healthy fats to help with the protein. Is that the type of stuff that you recommend, or are there other things that you recommend to help the body get fat adapted? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Um, I mean, you can do. I'm not a massive like proponent of like bulletproof, like putting loads of fat in your coffee and stuff.
Mm,
You can do, but ultimately, I think you don't need to. I think if you're eating, like say, like protein, so meat, fish, eggs,
being
and
clean. Yeah.
yeah, and just non-starchy veggies,
Hmm.
you'll end up fat adapted within a couple of weeks, and you can't really speed that process up. It just takes as long as it takes. Um, and then once you are fat adapted, if you then want to start playing with fasting, then it'll be a lot easier and it'll be a lot less stressful on your system.
Hmm.
So the stress is, guys still need to be aware of the stress side of it. So if you've got a really stressful job, um, you've got a lot of stress at home, you're training really hard, and you're not getting loads of, you're not getting good quality sleep. Fasting's probably not your friend because it's just another stress on
That's
the
real, because
system.
you're just adding on to the
Yeah,
problems.
you're
Yeah.
just stressing the system out even more, which will just ramp up stress hormones and just have
Hmm.
the opposite effect of what you're after. So it needs to be done sort of intelligently, bearing all the other stuff needs to be in place first, I would say, if you are going to use it.
Here's a weird thing that I wanted to run by you. Um, One of the things that I found in this most recent weight loss run, which has been really helpful for me, one of the best weight loss runs I've had in years, if I'm honest, is working out at night. Now, working out at night is not something that a lot of people seem to advocate for, but for
Hmm.
me personally, what I find is that if I don't work out at night, I carry a lot of stress in my body and my mind. and it'll actually keep me up. I'll be like, oh, what about this? This at the job, that blah blah blah. And so what I started doing was working out at night, specifically just doing a few air squats, because I learned for myself that if my legs are not tired, I don't feel tired. But if my legs are tired, I will absolutely lay down and chill, right? And so it's not like a crazy workout, just for the record. It's like some push-ups, some crunches and different ab sets, like lower, middle, and upper, and a couple air squats. Nothing cardio, because I found for myself that if I do cardio, it'll wake me up. Now my heart rate is up, and then I'll be up for real. So like kind of like a low grade strength workout and like 10 minutes of yoga with a shower, and like I was really good to go. But I know people say that like working out at night is not ideal. Um but because of my work schedule, I can't really do it in the morning. What are your thoughts on, ideal times of days and whatnot, for
Yeah, I think
you know,
ideally train in the morning if you can, because
yeah.
again, hormonally and just motivate, like your cortisol's high in the morning, your stress, like
Yeah,
which
that's
just
true.
gives you that get up and go, so you're just more inclined to do it. Um, if you're training at night, it's there's no problem with that. I would say the only thing to be mindful of is I would try and avoid any like high intensity stuff on an evening,
It's
which
definitely not intense. Yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
not
What
intense.
you've just alluded to, like that, essentially, if you go hard on like, hard hit session or a CrossFit
Hmm.
workout or even like, hard, imagine like hard rolling,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, exactly.
you're going to get that sort of cortisol, adrenaline, and that's just counter to winding down and
Totally.
being calm and sleep. So if you're going to train at night, that's fine. Just like strength stuff's probably the best thing to do on an evening.
Okay.
Like I do my climbing on an evening, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
more
yeah,
sort of
yeah, yeah.
strength based. Um, but again, I train in the morning if I can, just because I feel like it fits better with our sort of
Totally.
natural thing. But if you can't, you can't. You've got to make it work, haven't you?
No, man, that's really cool. So before we get off, um, you know, several people have told me, like, because I talk about journaling as like a stoic practice and things like that. And one thing that I still don't do, is I don't really journal what I eat. And so my partner was saying, like, until you really journal what you eat, it's really going to be hard for you to figure out what to cut out, what not to cut out, blah, blah, blah. And it's true, dude. Like, I think that it's true, but I also think I have this kind of like, and it's probably just my ego, right? Like, I know what I ate today, you know what I mean? But like, as much as I love journaling and as much as I learn about journaling, like, I don't ever really write that much about what I eat. What do you think about journaling? Is that an important thing to do in regards to your fitness and or your diet?
Yeah, I think it can be helpful. Definitely for the diet side of things, it can help.
Mm,
Um, I think initially, just to sort of get you can physically see what it is that you're doing,
mm,
and it sometimes it can like be a bit of a surprise if all what you're taking in. But I think ultimately, if you've got like a system like protein and veggies, um, or whatever it is, if you've got
hmm.
like a sort of rule book to sort of work from, then as long as you follow it, you can't go wrong, really.
Yeah,
In terms of training, again, a lot of it's on apps now. If you gym in, you probably if you've got a gym program like
yeah,
the one I do, you get an app with it, um, so my clients can sort of see what they're doing and keep
hmm,
track of the weights they've used and all that kind of stuff. But having a general sort of looking at the week view is a good one as well. So,
yeah,
ideally, if you're doing like 3 gym sessions a week and a couple of cardio sessions, you can
yeah. You should be
you
good.
can see you can if you have like if you just have like a tick box for the
Yeah, like
month, you can
cool,
yeah,
cool.
you just
Yep,
tick them off as you go, then you know you've done them.
yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely helpful. But I think as well, like you know, you can end up, it can become extra. It can be too much. You know, if you've got this routine where you've got to log everything and track everything, it just becomes,
Yeah,
again, it's like it's more time spent on that rather than actually doing the thing.
and doing the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
ideally, you want systems in place where you can just do the thing. I think that's the key. Um, and just if we're looking at sort of in terms of goal setting, it's just be realistic and just with your life as it is now, what have you got time to do? Even if things slip a bit, what's your kind of baseline?
Hmm.
And just try and do that consistently.
No,
Um,
dude,
you know.
that makes sense, man. Well, yo, man, I wanted to thank you for jumping on Bishop Chronicles and helping me and a lot of the other folks on here like get better about being able to get through their goals for 2026. For those that do want to reach out to you, and I really recommend you reach out to this guy. He's one of my favorite people around health and fitness. He's always really honest about the pros, cons, and questions of anything that you're going to do in the space. And I really trust him. He really is one of my favorite people to talk about fitness with. How can and should people get into contact with you? And do you have anything that's coming up? Because we haven't even talked that much, so I don't even know if you have anything coming.
No. Instagram, Integrity Through Action. You can message me on there, DM me. I do have a gym program, which is quite handy.
Type.
4 day a week strength program. If somebody wants to just jump on that, they
Okay.
can do. I think the first week's like a free trial if you want to try it out and see what you think. That's about it really. I've no events coming up. I'm just
Okay. Cool, man.
yeah, just ticking over with clients.
All right, man. Well, listen, if you're listening, I hope you have a beautiful 2026. I hope you trust yourself. I hope you believe in yourself to do the work. One of the things that I started doing when I was at a low point was in the morning, I would go on YouTube, and I didn't even plan to talk about this, it just hit me. I would go on YouTube and I would look up inspirational speeches. And so whether I was sitting on the train going to work or I was on the way back, but I always really did it in the morning is I listened to motivational things. And I know like there is such a thing as like toxic positivity, right? Where the house is on fire and you're just like everything's fine, right? But I think it's important to try and start your mornings motivated in a really good way. So think about how that is for you, right? Is that listening to motivational speeches? If so, do it. If not, try it. Maybe it's listening to good music, right? Not necessarily like gangster rap while you're doing your workout or whatever, or maybe you do need gangster rap, but like I started listening to reggae more. I started listening to like lo-fi stuff that wasn't gonna like you know what I mean? Like fully trigger me, but put me in a good space. And so, I just want to say, like, no matter what you're going to do, it's hard. No matter what you're going to do, it's not really going to be easy. But I have rarely found working on your physical fitness to end up not being worth it. There's always good benefits, right? But do make sure, like Robbo said, that you're pairing it with emotional and psychological work, right? With therapy, with books, right? Don't cut yourself short on that because physical fitness is just part of the puzzle.
Mm.
you know? So
I
cool.
think on that, I'll just very quickly on that one, mate. For me,
Yeah.
like when like similar in those kind of situations where you're struggling, um, for me, it's get up and do something. So get up and go for a walk, go for a run, go to the gym, like do something active and action rather than
Mhm.
like, getting in your own head. So get up
Yeah.
and do something. You've ticked something off for the day straight away. So you're already winning. And
Yeah.
that just sets the ball rolling then to get more stuff done.
It's funny. There was a time when I was probably like in my 40s where like as soon as the alarm would go off, I literally would roll off the bed onto the floor and just start doing push-ups. I was like, and I would just like start doing push-ups. So at least, right, at
Yeah,
least I
yeah.
did something. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
It wasn't a full
Mm.
workout, but at least in my
It
brain,
just gets you going though.
yeah, man.
Mornings are for action. Like you need
Absolutely.
to
It,
do
it is. It's
something.
important, man. It's
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
Well, listen, you have a blessed one. We'll stay in tune.
Cheers,
I'll give you
mate.
a
Yeah,
call
yeah.
later because we got to talk anyway. But stay blessed and strong, and thank you for your help today.
Cheers,
All
Alyssa.
right.
Take care, mate. See you
Okay.
later. Bye bye.
Love. Peace.